They're back. And unions are still under attack. Charles, what's going on with your AT&T contract?
The AT&T contract, regretfully, is still exactly where we were at before. We are now, I believe, 14 months out without a
Wow.
contract. Our members have worked over 25 million hours without a contract from one of the richest companies in the world. Just this past Friday, we had another surplus announcement that affected, from what I was told, over 1,800 people across the United States. So for a company that is making record profits, making huge acquisitions, promising they're going to create jobs, it has not happened. They continue to offshore and outsource our work. They're closing call centers down, eliminating U.S. jobs, but still receiving federal contracts, still bringing in that tax cut money, still refusing to bargain a fair contract that guarantees job security for American workers.
Wow. So let me get this straight because I want to make sure that our listeners get this. So, unlike the automobile industry, when sales go down and they're not making cars, in that case, they have to lay people off because the work is not there, correct?
Sure.
In that case, because you know
After
we're not.
supply
I'm
and
not
demand.
selling the TTR car. It's not selling. I got 5,000 people building it, but I'm not selling one. So at that point, we don't have anywhere to put them people. So we lay them off until we can get a car that ramps up. You know, we can ramp up and sell. These jobs at AT&T, are you telling me that they have went away? They just don't need to work anymore. The call centers is not used. No one's calling in. The work has dried up. There's, that's what's going on. That's the reason why we got all these layoffs, right?
Um, I mean, that's what they'd like you to believe, sure, but no, that's not the case. If you want to start with the call center
Yeah,
jobs,
yeah. I'm talking about the call center.
I
Y'all not
believe we
getting
had
enough calls, right?
we've had 7 closed since the start of the year. I know personally of Kalamazoo, Michigan, which is part of our local. We had
Hmm.
that one that was closed down. Then you had Appleton, which was in Wisconsin, Indianapolis in Indiana, Meriden, Connecticut, and Syracuse, New York. And there were 2 others. Now the rub on that is there's plenty of calls to be had. They're still selling the service. They're just offshoring that work. The call centers in Guadalajara, Mexico City, they're increasing there. They've got over 2,400 workers that are there. They're massive centers. They have centers in the Caribbean, in India, in the Philippines. There's no issue with having people to answer these calls. It's just a matter of they don't want to
Mm.
keep them in the United States. And a lot of that has to do with the Tax Cuts and the Jobs Act of 2017, that it lowered the offshore profit rate from 21% down to 10.5%. The tax cut itself lowered it from 35 to 21% for the corporate. But the offshore rate, the rate outside the United States, is half of that, literally half of that, 10.5%. And then these companies, they will filter that through places like Ireland, the Netherlands, Jamaica, and then get it down to the single digits. So when you talk about competitions, it's not a matter of we can't compete with these other places on a level playing field. It's that the system was rigged against us. There's no way that an American worker can compete against that when they're paying a smaller percentage to work with those offshore profits. Plus, they're paying those people $2, $3 an hour. Plus, they don't have the kind of regulations and the oversights that we have there. So not only do you have diminished service, but also the level of security that your information have is lowered. I don't know what kind of processes and protocols they have when they're answering your phone in, Jamaica. Do you? Does anyone?
Well, from what I was told, is that they have more identity theft there than ever. Because really, they don't have to go under our laws. Why? Because they're not in the United States. So that means everything that's attached to your social security number, when you call in for something, your address, your social security number, your bank accounts, all of that, if they're overseas, they got access to that. And keep in mind, they can always put a flash drive in a computer, download 250,000 people's information, and before you know it, you own a house in England because
Yes.
somebody took your credit.
So instead of having an American worker that's been hired by an American company, by an American manager, that's been vetted, that's been looked through, that's potentially been working there for a long time, that's a
Hmm.
union member, that has a reason to actually follow the rules, that has a house and kids and
Right,
people here that count on them,
right.
that doesn't exist when you're looking at these offshore locations. It's just not there.
Yeah. So you're talking about the work has not left. Let's be real clear about this. The work has not left.
So that was
It,
the call centers, right? Let's talk
yeah,
about
yeah,
the other
yeah.
side about it,
Yeah, the
with the
call
craft
center.
side of it, because the overwhelming majority of the people in our district, which is District 4, which is Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, and Wisconsin, most of those were construction positions. And the company's going to say that the fiber build that they're doing is drying up. Well, maybe the fiber build in the urban areas and the places where they think they can make lots of money is drying up. But there's plenty of places where they could extend that fiber. There's plenty of places where they use contractors to do that work. There's plenty of places where the facilities are in just disrepair because they have not been addressed, because the regulations and the rules that used to be in place for these companies when people were out of service, they've been legislated away. These companies have paid good money to no longer have to keep that service up and running. And you're talking about the people that need it the most, people in those rural areas. We're talking about people that might need a life alert, might need to be able to call 911, need to call their
Right.
family and check in, the elderly, people that are still using those POTS lines. They no longer have access to that because the facilities are 40, 50, 60 years old. And every time it rains, their service goes out. And it's raining today, so guess what? Poor
Service went
grandma
out.
Ruth, she doesn't have her service.
Wow. So let's go back to the fiber buildup because I know areas in Detroit that people are making the income is very high and they don't have access to fiber. So what's going on with that? I mean, they didn't even get Uverse.
No, and there's less and less of that Uverse available because they no longer want to sell it because now they decided they want to be in a streaming world. I mean,
Right.
with the acquisition of Time Warner, that's an $85 billion deal. And with that, there's kind of been a shift, a different idea of how the company wants to move forward because they want to be a content provider. They want to compete with the Netflixes and the Amazon Primes and the Hulu. And that's fine if that's what they want to do. But when they were lobbying for that big buy, I mean, the Department of Justice was against it. The president tweeted that it was a bad idea. It was bad for competition. It was going to lead to a monopoly. It was just too much money, too big to fail. Remember what that's like?
Mm-hmm.
But it still went through. Why? Because money talks. These corporations are able to buy legislation, to push through mergers that really don't help. And almost immediately after they did it, they changed a lot of their pricing with DirecTV. They changed a lot of their plans. So you
Right.
get worse service. There's a reason why we used to break up big corporations back in the day.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Look, I agree 100%. So AT&T does not have a contract, or District 4 does not have a contract.
That is
Now,
correct. Or
now-
Legacy T, which is the mobility side of things.
Right. Right. So they don't have a contract. So what are we doing?
We're mobilizing like crazy. That's what we're doing. A lot of information, putting the word out about what's going on. There was just a big mobilization having to do with the disrepair with the facilities in those 5 states. They took a lot of pictures of just the damage that's been done out there. There are websites where you can go in that tell you to please give your story about the service that you've had with AT&T because they were very specific back in 2017 about what the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017 was going to do. Randall Stevenson, who was the CEO,
Mhm.
said for every $1 billion of investment, we're going to invest in our workers. We're going to create 7,000 good jobs, hard hat jobs, benefited jobs. But they haven't done that since that time. It passed in December 2017, and since then, they've laid off over 23,000 good jobs. And with what happened on Friday, I bet they'd be pushing close to 25,000 good jobs. So they have not kept their promise. So there's a lot of websites. There's
Wow.
investigateatt.org. There's goodjobsatt.org. And all those things are talking about the fact that the promises that were made while lobbying for those corporate tax rates to be lowered have not happened. So they're calling for hearings to get companies like AT&T to go and actually answer questions in front of Congress about where that money was spent. And it's important that it's just not an AT&T issue. You look at General Motors. I mean, they just eliminated 14,000 jobs. We have buddies down in Lordstown in Ohio. That plant got closed down.
Right.
So General Motors, Mary Barra, the CEO over there, she should be answering questions. They've closed places with Wells Fargo, Carrier, Honeywell, Siemens. All those corporations are offshoring. Boeing, all these places that get giant federal contracts continue to offshore our work, continue to get paid money essentially by us, by American taxpayers, and they're killing American jobs. No one should be for that.